Hey everyone, welcome back. In the previous video, we looked at switch statements and how they help us control different paths in our code. Now we are moving to the next part of control flow, loops. In this video, we'll focus on for loops, which allows us to repeat code efficiently instead of writing the same logic again and again. First, what is a loop? A loop is a programming structure that allows you to repeat a block of code multiple times. It keeps running the code until a certain condition is true or for a specific number of times. Loops help avoiding repeating the same code manually and make programs more efficient. So we'll see in what scenarios loops are actually helpful. So we have one line called console log. We are printing a number 1. So we are printing number 1 to the console. So 1 is printed. And we want to print from 1 to 5. Let's say 2 here, 3 here, and 5. So again, we run, we see 1 to 5. Now imagine where you have to print numbers from 1 to 100. So you cannot keep on writing console log statements 100 times. In such cases, loops are handy. So what is a for loop? A for loop in JavaScript is used to repeat again a block of code a specific number of times. It is especially used when you know in advance how many times the code should run. So we have different types of loops. We have a while loop and a do while loop. Also, we'll discuss this in the next class. So coming back to for loop, a for loop has three main parts: initialization, condition, and increment. So we'll see the basic syntax. We'll have for keyword, then we'll have increment initialization here. Next condition, and then we'll have increment, and we'll have open and close of curly braces. So this is the basic syntax. Let's break this down. So first, initialization. Initialization runs only once at the very beginning. This is where we usually create a counter variable. That is something like this. Let I equal to 0. The variable I is just a common name developers use, but it can be anything. It represents the starting point of the loop. For example, if we write let I equal to 0, it means the loop start executing, or loop will start counting from 0. After this step, the initialization part never runs again. The loop then moves on to checking the condition, which is this. So we'll change initialization to let I equal to 0. So we want to print numbers from 0. We want to start printing numbers from 0 to the console. Next, the condition. This decides when the loop runs or stops. It is the path of the loop that controls uh, the for loop has to stop. Before every iteration, JavaScript checks the condition. So once after initialization is done, so I value is stored in the memory as 0, then it will go to the next step, which is checking the condition. If the condition is true, the code inside the loop runs. So if I have a code inside this block, it will run. If the condition is false, the loop stops immediately. The condition usually compares the loop variable to a value. So this is the loop variable. We'll compare it with a value with one of the comparison operator. For example, like checking if I is less than some number. As long as the condition stays true, the loop keeps running, and once the condition becomes false, the loop ends here. So we want to print from 0 to 5. So our condition should be I less than or equal to 5. So if I write less than 5, then the condition for it will print from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and when the I value becomes 5, it will come here and it will check is 5 less than 5. It fails, so it won't print 5. That is why we need to use less than or equal to 5 or less than 6, whatever. And next, increment. The increment, this here you can write increment or decrement, which is I plus plus or I minus minus, which will basically add 1 or subtract 1 from the value of I. So this value also changes after every iteration. Condition is checked for every iteration. This is also checked for every, this value also changes for every iteration. And this initialization happens only once, that is at the beginning of the loop. After the code inside the loop run once, uh, this part is executed. So if it is I plus plus, so 1 is added to I, which is 0 plus 1, I value will become 1. So, and in same way, if you have I minus minus, means it will decrease the value by 1, value of I. So without incrementing or decrementing, the condition might never become false. So how, yeah. So if we don't have this, let's say we don't have this. So I equal to 0 checks the condition, I less than or equal to 5, it is true. We don't have any increment, it goes back. I equal to 0, again, I less than or equal to 5, true. It goes back. I equal to still 0. So loop will not end, it will be an infinite loop if we don't have increment or decrement here. This step ensures the long loop progress and eventually stops. And we'll see how the execution is happening, the flow of execution. Yeah. So after this third step, the loop goes back to second step again, condition. So this is run only once. So the full order, if you want, it is like initialization, condition, code. It will run the code, and again it will come back, increment. Then it will go back to step 2, again code, increment, step 2, code, increment. Once after incrementing for a couple of times, or 5 times in this case, this condition will be false, then the code stops executing, the loop, the JavaScript comes out of the loop. So we'll see an example. So we want to print till 5. So in this case, so we want to write only one console log statement here, because for loop will do its job, and it will print from 0 to 5. We'll change this to 1 to 5. 1 to 5 is more less confusing. So we'll write only one console log, but we want to print from uh, 1 to 5. So here, if you closely observe these three things, the value of I equal to 1 here in the first iteration, and it is eventually changing from 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you try to print I here, so we are trying to print the value of I. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 printed to the console. When using a for loop with numbers, we usually repeat something a specific number of times. This is helpful when we want to count or print numbers or run code a fixed amount of times. For example, we can start from a number and increase it until we reach a limit, like so. Or we can start from higher number, and we can reverse this condition, and we can decrement it. This loop variable acts as a counter. This one, I acts as a counter. So each time the loop runs, the number changes based on the increment or decrement. As long as the condition is true, the loop continues. And this is commonly used for counting from 0 to 10. So let's say if I write 10 here, it will count from 1 to 10 in this case, because I wrote 1. So 1 to 10. Or you counting backwards, which is, so if I write this one here, right, greater than 0. And in this case, your value will start from 10. So you have to write I minus minus. So this case, and also you are running something for exact number of times. You know how many times you should run it. And next one is we have seen loop with numbers, and let's see how it behaves with arrays. So we have an array called, let's initialize again, bad practice. So we need to write something meaningful, numbers. So 1 comma 2 3 4 5 6. Looping through this array means we are accessing each item in the array one by one. So we'll access one first, two, three, four, five, six. So the same way we are incrementing, and we are printing every number in each line. Let's say we are accessing each element once for every iteration. So a for loop is commonly used for this because arrays are index based. Each item in an array has a position called index. If you remember the video, where I explained data types, so I explained how arrays are written. So these indexes are starting from 0. So we use the loop variable as the index. So we'll write an array first. So let I, yeah. So here these array have indexes, 6 elements, which means 6 indexes, and it starts from 0. So last index would be 5. So this is also starting from 0. So our counter variable acts as the indexes. Like we can access our index with the help of this variable. So it reaches where, till where the array reaches. In this case, like it's 6 elements. So you can write directly like I less than 6. Why I wrote less than 6? Because 0 to 5 is 6 elements, right? But what if you don't know how many elements are there in the array? Still you want to run, still you want to iterate through the array. Then we'll have a property called length property. So this is the safest possible way of writing, looping through the arrays. You start from 0 and you go till n minus 1, which is n is the length. You go till n minus 1, which is less than n, length of the array. So I less than uh, our numbers dot length, and how you want to access each element, one element one time. So you want to access 0th element one time, and then first element, and then second element, and then third element. Sorry, 0th index, and then first index, second index, third index. So you want to increment it by 1, which is I plus plus. This is how you want to access. This makes it easy to read, or display or process all the values, stored in the array. So let's see how we can access it easily. So again, we'll have console log and our array, and this is how we access index. So the only changing value is here our variable. And if we run this, see, every element is printed to the console. I hope it is clear that how we are accessing, array with index. An index is the position of an item in an array, and it starts at 0. So the first element is at index 0, and the second is index 1, and so on. Inside a for loop, we use the loop variable as, our index, and this lets us access a different element on each iteration. By using the index, we can read or use individual values from an array. Uh, and again, one element at a time. So you don't want to print even elements, which is, so 0 is odd, 0 is odd, 2 is odd. So you don't want to print odd index elements. Then you can increment it by 2. Okay. Oh, oh, I wrote a condition wrong here. This is not incrementing it. So I need to write something like I equal to I plus 2. Yeah. Now if I run, Yeah, see, code executes. Run again. So we are printing only these three indexes. 0, then it will be, then 2 will be added to I, the value of I, which will become 2. So the second index and then the fourth index. This is how we access array elements by indexes. So if when we are trying to manipulate or modify the data, this will be useful. Common use cases of for loops. So you can use for loops when you are repeating an action a fixed number of times, like how many times you want to repeat or you want to print the number. So in that case, you use for loop. You are counting up or you are counting down from 1 to 5 or 5 to 1, or you're looping through arrays or lists, and displaying or processing each item in a collection. Again, collection will be an array, like sort of, and performing calculations multiple times, or generating patterns or sequences. For loops are used whenever you need controlled repeated execution of code. And we have a concept called nested for loop. We have a concept called nested for loop. What is a nested for loop? So a for loops are for loops placed inside another for loop. The outer for loop runs first. For each iteration of the outer for loop, the inner loop runs completely. So let's say we have, so increment, sorry, initialization, then condition. So let's go small, less than 3. We are incremental, and inside a for loop we'll have another loop saying again I less than 3, I plus plus. Right. Now we want to console.log. We want to console log I. So how this works is this outer loop is like is run 3 times, but for each iteration this loop is run how many? 2 times. 2 times. So 3 multiplied by 2 will have high printed to the console 6 times. So I will show you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So we'll have high printed to the console for 6 times. These are commonly used. We'll discuss more about this when we are dealing with nested loops. We'll have as a class alone for nested loops. So these are we'll have arrays. We'll have 2D arrays. We'll call them if every element in the first array contains the same number of elements, then it's called a matrix. Yeah, that we are going to discuss. Anyway, when we are dealing with matrices or two-dimensional arrays or multi-dimensional arrays, and when we are comparing items into lists, or when we are creating patterns, we'll use nested arrays. This allows you to handle multi-level repetition in a structured way. Now, uh, important. So we have two statements, which is break and continue. So what is a break statement? Now, so if you take this code, so your code is printing 0 to, sorry, 10 to 1, right? So it will print 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, what if I don't want it to print a number 5? So I write an if condition. Let's say if I equal to 5, break. So yeah. So what if I want, like if I becomes 5, then I just want to exit out of the loop. I don't want to check my condition. I don't care about any of this. If I values equals to 5, I'm counting backwards. So if I value becomes 5, then I just want to exit from the loop. So we can use this break, break statement. This break statement is used to stop a loop immediately. When a break statement is executed, the loop ends right away, even if the condition is still true. Like it is completely used, sorry, it is commonly used when a specific condition is met and there is no need to continue looping. After break, the program continues running the code that comes after the loop, but not the loop again. So right now, our condition is if I equal to 5, I want to exit the loop, right? So, but it will print 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. When I becomes 5, it will come and it will check for the condition, this one, and I equal to 5 becomes true and it will come out of the loop. So we'll have only 10 to 6 printed to the console now. So yeah, 10 to 6. So if I equal to 4, then it is 10 to 5. So this is how break statement works. So there will be scenarios where you want to exit the loop, if the condition is met. So if you are again, see, let's say if you are traversing through the array, if you are iterating through an array, so as soon as you find 3, like you want to see if there is 3 in that array or not. As soon as you find 3, you don't need you don't need to check for the rest of the array, right? So you just want to check if the array has 3 or not. So as soon as you find 3, you get out of the loop. In such cases, we use break statements. In we use break statement, like if you see 3 in there, come out of the loop. You don't need to check for anymore, like any other elements. And we also have one more statement, which is continue. So here is break, and let's write continue here. And we'll first run the program, and I think you can spot the difference. So if you clearly observe, so it is counting from 10 to 1, but element 4 is missing. Why? Because we said if I equal to 4, then continue. What this continue means? So this continue statement is used to skip the current iteration of a loop. So when condition runs, and it is true, it will execute continue statement, and when it sees a continue statement, when continue runs, the loop stops executing the current iteration, just this current iteration, which is I equal to 4, skip, don't print it. So I'm not printing my 4 value, so it is 10 to 1. When do we need this? So I want to print numbers from 10 to 1, yes, but I don't want to print even, I don't want to print odd numbers. So what is the condition for odd numbers? I mod 2 not equal to 0. If I mod 2 equal to 0, it is an even number. Not equal to 0, it is an odd number. So in such cases, I want to skip the iteration. So I'm printing only the even numbers. So in such cases, you will use continue. So remember, break and continue. Break will completely terminate the loop and it will come out of the loop, and continue will just skip that particular iteration for a true condition. And common mistakes, infinite loops. So if you observed that before I wrote a infinite loop, what is an infinite loop? Is you miss writing, or you write you make a mistake in writing increment or condition, then the loop will never stop. So something like this. Right. So I have a loop. So a loop. So let's the condition is I less than 1, I plus 1. So here I'm not incrementing properly. Here what I'm doing is I'm not writing I plus plus, I'm not incrementing properly. So whenever this expression is evaluated, it will uh, uh, so it will always be initiated with 1, and this is not incrementing properly. I'm incrementing it, but I'm not assigning it back to the I variable. So it is just like saying that incremented, but don't we are not changing the actual I value. So if we try to print console log what, let's say I here, so if we run this again, the loop won't stop, because here we are not incrementing. So 0 is always less than 1, the loop won't stop, it will print continuously. So this we need to check. We need to check if our condition is making our loop an infinite loop. So here we are incrementing properly. We are incrementing properly. But what if we give some a wrong condition? So I equal to 0, I greater than 1, I plus plus, print it. If I greater than 1, print it. Then if you see this executing, oh yeah. So for the first condition itself is wrong. So yeah, see this. So it is incrementing, but we are not asking it to stop. Here, what is happening? So I equal to 1, I greater than or equal to 1, which is true. It is printing 1. Yeah, it is printing 1. Incrementing 2 greater than or equal to 1. Yes. 3 equal to greater than or equal to 1. Yes. 4 greater than 1. 5 greater than 1. 6 greater than 1. So it will keep incrementing, and it will not stop because your condition is always true. So you have to check your conditions. Otherwise, you will end up with infinite loops, which is not unexpected behavior. See, it is still taking time to terminate it. And one more error is off one by one error. So these errors occur when the loop runs one too many times or one time too few. Like this often happens because array indexes start at 0, or because the condition uses a wrong comparison operator. So uh, array indexes starts from, again, let's see, where is our array? Yeah, here we are dealing with the array. So this is, we are dealing with the array. So what if we write equal to here, less than or equal to? So we are less than or equal to 6, right? But we don't have sixth index here. So if we try to execute this, so we'll probably have undefined as our sixth element. Okay, yeah, see, undefined. Why undefined? Because we are trying to access we are trying to access sixth index, which is not present in this you know array, right? This array has 6 elements, but index are starting from 0 to and ending with 5. The last index is 5. Here the numbers dot length is 6. So this condition is like 6 less than or equal to 6. When I become 6, it is true, but we don't have a sixth element here. That's why it is printing undefined. And this is one too many, and sometimes we'll have something like this. So we know the last index is n minus 1, right? So if we consider this as n, and we generally like, okay, we are looping till n minus 1 elements, so we'll write something like this, n minus 1. So again, if we try to run this, so we have only 5 elements because we are writing n minus 1 here. It is good, but we are using less than here. So very simple thing is, like, if you use n minus 1, we use less than equal to. If you use just n, then we use less than. uh, you will be surprised how many such errors you'll make while writing your code. It will look like it is very simple now, but experienced developers to make those mistakes. Yeah, that's it about our for loops. We covered what they are, how they work, and most common ways to use them, learn them, from counting numbers to looping through arrays. Take some time to practice writing your own loops. Write loops, write conditions. Try to use break, try to use continue. How it works, how it behaves. uh, if you're just listening to classes one by one, you won't get it. You need to practice, otherwise you won't remember. If you practice, then you'll have an idea, and you'll quickly remember when to use what. So practice really helps while learning programming. And yeah, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more JavaScript tutorials. and I'll see you in the next one.